What does OAC mean in construction? You've heard of it, but what is it? And I will say that your OAC can be a nightmare, or it can be a way to form deeper relationships with your client with more connection. So how can you make the most of it? That's what we're going to talk about in this video right now. So in construction, the OAC meeting stands for the Owner, Architect, Contractor, so OAC meeting. And this is where obviously the owner, architect, and contractor meet together, typically on a weekly basis, to strategically manage the project together. The purpose is to facilitate communication, to do any coordination between those three entities, and to make key decisions amongst the right stakeholders, meaning like if there's a decision that can't be made just by the general contractor or architect or owner that requires all three, those are the decisions that get made in this meeting. Typically, the agenda will focus the team on discussing project progress, addressing issues, which is one of my favorite ones, removing roadblocks for the team, and making important decisions to keep the project on track. So if you think about it, we typically look at like an org chart hierarchically with the owner, the architect, the general contractor, and then it filters down. If you inverted that to where you have this like reverse or upside down pyramid, and you say the workers are up here on top, and each level of leadership is there to support the workers. The OAC is at that core, right? It's the foundation. And if the OAC, the owners, the architects, and the contracting team are not supporting all leaders on the project site to build with the right materials, with the right permissions, at the right times, with their problems cleared out of the way, then they're not doing their job. So the OAC is a governing body, but it's really a support team. That group has got to be high functioning so that anybody else on the project who needs something from that level of authority has it. So I would like to discuss what is in an OAC meeting and then go through some of my opinions on how you can make it remarkable. So let's start these one by one. Number one, attendance. And you're probably like, oh my gosh, Jason's about to talk about attendance in a meeting. Let me just go ahead and fall asleep, right? And it's like, no. This is a big deal. Because if you don't have the right decision makers with the right authority at this meeting, then you're going to be held up and you're not going to clear the roadblocks out ahead of the team, which means you're not going to have flow. So you're definitely going to have your owner and your owner's rep there. You're definitely going to have your PM for the architect who's doing construction administration, maybe some of the lead designers, and maybe some of the engineers if it's pertinent. You're definitely going to have the contractor, so it might be the director, the general superintendent, the PM, and the superintendent, the project superintendent for the project, right? You'll have the right people there. Sometimes you even have trade partners depending on what your circumstances are or what contract delivery method you're actually using. But having the right attendance is key. And a lot of times, if you're not making the right decisions in a timely manner, you don't have the right people there. So being clear about who's supposed to be there, actually doing the attendance, like actually doing a roll call while you're there on the meeting minutes, and then adjusting from there to make the meetings more effective is crucial. So that's step number one, make sure the right people are at the right meetings. Number two, the agenda. And this is a good one. Now, if you have a really well-crafted agenda, this can be pretty jamming. Typical OAC meetings have the following agenda: project update, schedule milestones, budget status, design progress, procurement status, change orders, RFIs, and any other information brought up as a part of that meeting by the stakeholders. Now, this is really great. I love those topics. This is great. But if it becomes a meeting where it's like, oh yeah, are we hitting the milestone? Yeah, we're good on the milestone. Or what's the status of the project? Here, let me give you 5 slides, rubber stamp it. Okay, I just need to get out of here and get coffee. And it's like item by item by item by item, nothing's really happening. Then it's not a good meeting. All of these things should literally be to identify problems that need to be solved at that level. So when I go through the list, procurement, is there any procurement that needs to be discussed or approved or paid for or recovered by that level of team at the OAC level, right? If you're going to talk about change orders, is there anything that wasn't automatically approved that we need to discuss with all parties involved? There may be a dispute, right? Or if you're talking about schedule, let's say there was a massive problem and we now need to recover the project, right? Let's talk about the different ways that we could possibly recover this project. These systems should report the problems that need to be identified at that level of leadership, discussed and solved. So it can't be a, oh my gosh, here's what the project is, rubber stamp, leave. That's just a waste of time. I mean, maybe you get a little bit of an update from it, but it's not really what it's supposed to be doing. And so in order for that to happen, an owner and designers have got to normalize problems. Every project has problems. If you shame your contractor for having problems, you are now normalizing hiding a lack of transparency and dishonesty. And now you're not going to be able to identify or discuss or solve anything. So each reporting mechanism has got to be up to date, focused, and clearly outlined in a manner where you can see the problems so you can IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. Number 3, the purpose of the meeting is to communicate, right? Anything that the parties need to communicate to each other, any possible deadlines, any requests from other parties, any general updates so we can be on the same page. Communicating problems is obviously key for the IDS method. Communicating this is really effective, especially if you communicate well, because that creates a more cohesive team, more connectedness, and more efforts going in the right direction as aligned by the goals of the project. Number 4, and I've already talked about this body, and I believe this is the main thing that they should be doing, is solving problems, right? I used to joke around with people that was like, and I'll just give you the joke now, and hopefully you forgive me if it's inappropriate, but like, let's say you borrowed money from the mafia, like any mafia. You could have that be in Asia or Europe or North or South America, whatever. Imagine a mafia somewhere, and you borrow money from them, and you don't pay them back, right? Then somebody's going to come and rough you up a bit. Maybe they beat you up, rough up your hair, throw you on the sidewalk, whatever. That's your first warning. Your second warning is somebody's going to come visit you, and they're probably going to give you enough of a cut to put you in the hospital, like something to like really shake you. You know what I mean? Third person that comes by, it's probably this. You know, you're out, like you're going down. So the same thing, although we don't kill people and rough them up. If something can be taken care of at a project level, that's like that tier 1 I was talking about. If the leaders of the project need to take over an issue from the foreman and supers, that's like that tier 2. That's like when somebody comes and like shakes you up a bit, puts you in the hospital, right? Tier 3, that's when the OAC is dealing with it. That means it's a big, big item. Like you're bringing in the big dogs. Somebody's going down. I'm just kidding. It's kind of a funny way to remember it, but there's even mafias use the tiered system, right? We've got to use it on projects, right? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 3 items are major, massive issues that need to be solved right away. The main purpose of the OAC, that group, is to solve those major issues. Hopefully you like my analogy and you got the point. Number 5, decision making. This is key. Room numbers, right? How we're going to tag commissioning. How are we going to manage the owner move-in? Finish any design items. Are we going to accept that user's request for a change order, right? What are we going to do about this material selection? We have got to make decisions faster, 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 faster. It is so common in the industry for, and this is not bad-mouthing them, but for the owner to be holding up decisions to the architect, which is holding up design, which is then holding up the contractor. We have got to be making decisions. So in the OAC and the schedule, we've got to know when those decisions need to be made. When is the last responsible moment? When can we select that tile? When can we finalize the room numbers? When can we decide on that change order? When can we? It's the OAC's job, whoever's leading it or curating this meeting, to make sure that no decisions go past the responsible point. And then number 6, documentation. This is key. I always say, hey, if there's a change, if there's a delay, if there's a problem, if there's an impact, it's got to be on the daily report, and it's got to be discussed in the OAC and put in the meeting minutes. I want conversations well documented in the meeting minutes so that we have a historical record that these things were discussed. This will help us if there's any disputes. This will help us if we ever go to court on anything, right? And it will help us anchor back on the root cause of why something may have happened and who is responsible to fix it. So having really good documentation in meeting minutes is crucial. And then the last item is follow-up. Obviously there's assignments with an assignee, right? The one person ultimately responsible for that item. And there's things that need to be done before the next OAC. So really great project teams and project managers will make sure that follow-up is happening by phone call, by email, by Zoom meeting, or whatever throughout real time as problems get resolved. So keep that real-time communication going and follow up on every action item. At the end of the day, your OAC meeting can be a way to have fun, to connect, to really learn each other's personality, to do better, to admit mistakes, to build a team. Or it can be an absolute nightmare where you're always fighting. It's your choice. But here are some tips if you want to do it well. Number one, make everything visual. Most conflict and contention comes from not being able to see what's going on. Number two, learn how people like to communicate, or learn how they like to receive information. If your owner doesn't like to see it in a visual format, maybe they like it in words, maybe they like a video, maybe they like a sketch. However they like to see and understand information, tailor it to them. Number three, build trust. Make sure that you are communicating that you care about them. Make sure that you're admitting to mistakes, you're leaning in and digging in when we have a problem, right? And make sure that you're trying to connect at every point of the way. Number four, solve real problems. Do not just, have milquetoast problems like, oh, what color of paint are we going to have on the bathrooms, right? Solve real problems together. It will pull that team together. And number five, make problem solving really, really clear. Before you go to the OAC, you can go to the OAC saying, hey, here's a problem, and we've already looked at the scenarios for A, B, C, D. Let's discuss each one of them, and then we can make a decision. If you want decisions to be made faster, you have to make it easier for them to see. At the end of the day, these meetings can really, really create flow for your project, so I hope you're able to do them well. So that you can remember exactly how this process goes, I'm going to leave you with a blog post down in the description below that you can follow if you ever need to improve your meetings. OAC stands for Owner, Architect, Contractor Meeting, and they are there to create flow for the project by identifying problems and making key decisions that can only be made at their level. I hope you've enjoyed this video. On we go.